Before we think about making changes to systems, we do have to ask, what level of retirement security do we want to provide for our teachers, our firefighters, our police officers? Questions, we should start there, and then make sure that the systems we're designing provide that level of retirement security we want people to have.
Yeah, and you were talking about how taking away the pension is not going to be the answer.
That's right. So, there was a great example I heard recently where, you have a credit card, you've racked up a lot of debt, and you say, oh, I got to get rid of this. Let me just go open another credit card. Well, you know what? That doesn't actually get rid of the debt on the first credit card. You have to deal with that. In pension world, closing a pension and opening another system for new hires doesn't deal with the unfunded liability. West Virginia experienced that. Other states have experienced that. You've got to address the unfunded liability with good funding policy, and making a benefit design change isn't going to impact that.
And what are some lessons that we have or can learn from West Virginia?
Yeah, so West Virginia, they had started underfunding their teacher pension plan back in the late 70s, early 80s. And then they eventually decided, well, we got to deal with this. Let's close the plan and offer a 401k to new teachers. Well, what they found was that in addition to the funding status continuing to drop, it was actually costing the state twice as much to provide a benefit under a 401k as it had been under the pension. So in 2005, they reopened their pension plan. Since then, their funding status has gone back up. There was like 58% by 2010, and they expect it to be fully funded by 2034. So in addition to reopening the plan, they instituted a stricter funding policy. And so that's really, I think, the message when you're dealing with underfunding. You've got to deal with the funding streams and making sure you're being diligent about that as the employer.
You laid out some really good points of what might work and what doesn't work.
Sure.
If we know that, what can we do to drive that home or to get that message to the governor and to the people who need to know it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It's very important for people to communicate with their elected officials, and not just people who have pensions, but people who've got children in the school system. Do you want your kids growing up and seeing their teacher in poverty on the street, which is a possibility. Again, like I mentioned, that's what started the Pennsylvania teacher system. So having people from all over the state talk to their representatives and senators about why they think it's important to provide a secure retirement to the people who serve their community, their cops, their firefighters, librarians, teachers, these folks, why it matters to them even though they're not a public employee. I think another question here, and in a lot of states, truthfully, what are we doing to help the people who have nothing for retirement? About 50% of Americans don't have a retirement plan through work. And what are we doing to help those people? That's a question Kentucky could be challenging instead of trying to, harm the retirement security for their public employees.